All right, so we're getting into our second topic now, immigration and extremism. And so just a word about this one. A couple of things. I would say that for all students, if you're doing globalization, make sure they have these two studies. This next study we're going to look at is incredibly complex. It covers a range of topics, which is great. You can use it for a lot of things. But because it's so incredibly complex, I'm not sure all students will be able to grasp all of it, or they might be able to get bits and pieces. So definitely for globalization, these are the two studies I recommend. And then you get into this one for kind of like extra for experts, but it can be used for other topics like acculturation, prejudice, and discrimination. So it's really useful, which is why I want to include it. Now, it's also a very politically charged topic as well. We're looking at terrorism, Islamic extremism. So got to be pretty careful with this one. And I wonder if I've done a good job of that or not. I'll leave that for you to judge. So immigration and extremism. So we're going to, because it's such a complicated study, we break it down over a number of lessons. I always like to begin with this definition. You'll see this recurs again and again. I just think students, need to be able to define this key term if they're going to do, explain what globalization is. It's a more tricky one than most. So we review what we did in the last lessons. Okay, and then now we're looking at marginalization influencing religious beliefs. And so particularly in this study, we're looking at Islamic extremism. In the activities files, you've got the flashcards there, the 3 key studies flashcards and some key terms. You can print these out, give them hard copies to students, and they can fold them over and use those to revise. A couple of videos here. This is a review of terrorist attacks in Europe carried out by ISIS. So the study we're looking at came out in 2015 when ISIS was at its possibly at its peak, and so this can give a little bit of context here as well. So this sets a foundation for the topic. We're looking at the root causes of terrorism, and in this case, we're looking at the root cause of Islamic extremism, which leads to that brand of terrorism. And ideally, if we know what causes it, we can look to ways to prevent it, especially the radicalization. Now, this activity has already been included in the acculturation topic for the social influence chapter, but you might want to do it again. It doesn't hurt to do it again. Students have probably forgotten it unless you've only just done that topic. So we've got 4 fictional and 1 real life immigrant here, and we talk about their accultural strategies. Okay, so now, one thing I like to do, this is the model, the diagram that comes from the study, and you can see there's a lot of variables here and it's very complicated. So just begin the unit or this topic by asking them, could they answer these 2 questions? How can acculturation influence behavior? And then secondly, that's the easier question. Now the second one is to go, well, what has this got to do with globalization? How does it show that globalization can influence behavior? And that's a tricky one. So here are just some slides just to give a bit more context. So we're looking at immigration as the example of globalization. And this is a pretty good quote that shows immigration is a driving force behind globalization. All right, and so breaking that down again, so what we're looking at is the effect of globalization is looking at how it affects our identity and the attitudes, and that's based on the acculturation strategy that participants use. And so, again, using the same article is really helpful. Oh, I'll fix that error. Don't worry, that should be 2002. It's the psychological consequence of globalization is it results in transformations in identity, and we're looking at how that can influence immigrants in immigration. Okay, so just taking the time to break it down here and introduce the topic that we're looking at. We're seeing that integrated immigrants have better mental health, marginalized immigrants have poorer mental health. And the particular mental health issue we're looking at for marginalized immigrants here is significance loss. And that's what the study shows. And also then the significance loss can be the risk factor for radicalization and supporting groups like ISIS if you're a Muslim immigrant who's experiencing significance loss. See if students can put this in their workbooks, if they can fill in the gaps here, give them some time to do that, and then you can go over the answers here. Okay, so it's just some more chalk and talk. Significance loss, we're just defining what this is. It's a risk factor for developing extremist views, and I think, I defined it on the previous slide, didn't I? It's designed, so it's low self-worth and a general lack of feeling of meaning in someone's life. So we're looking at religious extremism, adopting interpretation of religion that is not held by most others in that religion. And to be honest with you, I avoided, for just political reasons, I don't want to be controversial, I avoided defining Islamic extremism, but I'll leave that up to you if you want to add that definition here. And then, we've got the Ku Klux Klan as one example of religious extremism based on extremist Christian beliefs, and here we've got ISIS, which is the group that we're focusing on really for this study or for this topic. So just a little bit of bit more chalk and talk, a bit more context as well for what they did for the study. 200 first and second generation Muslim immigrants, and they measured these 5 things. And you can see they measured so much. There are so many different variables, which is why I love and hate this study. I love it because you can use it for so many different topics. You can use it for the discrimination topic. You can use it for the acculturation topic. It can be applied here for globalization. It could be used for origins of conflict, possibly even conflict resolution. But it is even arguably is for social identity theory perhaps, but that could be difficult for most students to do that one properly. So after you've chalked and talked there, we've introduced it. There's just some guided notes in the workbook. If you've got a more engaging way to go about that lesson, then let me know. But that's I think a pretty good general introduction to this study. And then we exit ticket. Can they define globalization? You see, I'll keep coming back to this idea of being able to define globalization because it's pretty important. And just to remind students, right? Like, I mean that low level remembering is pretty key, right? And this is why I think just regular review and flashcards are so good for this. Practice, revise. Right, and then that's the end of that first lesson in this topic. The next lesson we will get to will be just carrying on the study, looking at marginalization and radicalization.